Hello, friends. My name is Steve, and we are here today to discuss chapters 9 through 13 of the Warrior Prophet. I had to double check my notes. I keep getting the chapters wrong. So, 9 through 14, and we're
13.
here with 9 through 13. Excuse me. It's been that kind of week. So, we're here again with our friends Katerina and Daniel. Katerina, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Katerina, and this is my second time reading through The Warrior Prophet.
And I'm
And
Daniel, and this is my at least third time, and it's been good. It's been fun. What have you thought so far, Steve?
well, it's my first time, and I'm. We were talking a little bit before we started recording. It doesn't feel like a lot happens, but it at the same time it feels like a lot happens. It doesn't. I don't know if it's because this book doesn't feel as dense and as heavy as the first book does. I don't know if that's part of it, but when you sit back and think about it, like things happen and things are revealed, but it doesn't seem as eventful for some reason. What do you both think?
Yeah, I think the first part that we finished last week was a lot of build up and slow movements towards the thing that happened in this part. So I felt the same way. I also felt like not much, even though I have loads of notes, I didn't really feel like a lot of important things happened, a lot of important revelations happened in the first part. But in the first half of part two was actually a lot of fun, and it also might have to do something with the fact that we return to some of my favorite characters. Like I'm a sucker for the Ikureis, so that always makes me happy to see them pop up on the page.
Hmm. What about you, Daniel? What do you think about that?
I've thought this book so far has been kind of like a orchestra. It's had its slow moments, and then the wars have been big moments. Sometimes he talks about the deaths of like thousands of people very casually and over just a couple pages. The sacking of cities and sentences, or barely paragraphs. But there has been a lot that happened in these chapters we read that's been like a kind of like a climactic point of the story so far.
Hmm. Yeah, it does seem like a road trip, like a bad road trip that you. Um, well, it also made me think. You know, even back in history, if you were just a random village somewhere that didn't have a lot of defense, or you just kind of minding your own business by yourself and have your little setup, and someone came through and just decided that you were, you know, they, you were no longer going to live, then you had no power at all. I mean, there's no one to protect you. So they did it seemed very casual that they went through these villages and they just decided to kill people. Or Daniel, like you mentioned before about the lamb's blood on the door, but or the way that they tortured people, and it just seemed very casual, and you almost forget the way that the characters interacted. That it almost felt like they were on a vacation, but there was all this really terrible stuff happening. So it was kind of interesting the way that worked out because it's such a big army or such a big group. So maybe, yeah, it just seems kind of weird.
Yeah, it does feel like a lot of the violence is just incidental to what's happening. Because when you think of it, for most of the characters, the fact that there are some civilians dying, or even that they're conquering some small villages, like that's not really their concern. They're either concerned with um, gaining power within the politics of the holy war, or like Callus or Kami, and they're concerned with deciding whether someone is a prophet sent to them by gods and who they should follow, who's worthy of their worship. So it's the holy, like the actual holy war, the conquest. It doesn't really seem to take central focus for most of the characters and their story or their worries and concerns.
It's just an instrument to get them all together and move them a certain direction. And it had, like, the Holy War itself has been quite secondary to, like, the councils and the inner fighting of the point of views we get. But it doesn't take away, like, what is happening in that world. It's kind of like when the Crusades happened, the powerful people didn't think about the horrible things that were happening, like in the villages, as they swept through and did exactly what they did in this, pretty much. Some of them they let either renounce their god, and if they did, they would become slaves and at least live. The one part where they just started throwing heads over, they, like, I think one, who was it? It was in the city of Dayrut. They somehow, like, routed out couple thousand Phantom and started throwing the severed heads over the wall. And they opened the gate after 131 heads had went over the wall, and they just went in and murdered all of them.
It seems like a no-win situation, right? Because if you surrender and you just open the gates, they'll probably kill you, and maybe if you're lucky, you'll be a slave. But if you resist, then they for sure will. So it's like there's no good outcome for you. It's just, yeah.
And it
I
seemed like
mean,
the first city they marched through, or it wasn't even a city, it was just like a whole bunch of little, like, villages, but they opened their doors to them, it said, and just, like, fed them and let them take what they wanted, so they would leave them. And it talked about them being a people that have been conquered by, like, the Phantom and reconquered by the Enrithi, and they still survived their overlord leaders just by persevering. And the one group, I think, like, mutinied and they killed all their captains and then opened the gate, and then they ran through and still just butchered them all because heathens are bad enough. You don't want some untrustworthy heathens.
yeah, I mean it's telling that the Phantom would prefer to surrender to the Nansor, even though they've been their long-standing enemy. Um, but at least the Nansor are not like they're actually an organized army that listens to their general. Um, whereas the other Inrithi, they're just running around, murdering, pillaging as they like. So I mean, it's interesting that you would rather surrender to someone who you've been fighting with for hundreds of years, if not thousands of years, rather than rather than some people you never met.
Like the familiar enemy that won't let you die with dignity, as
Yeah,
opposed
pretty much.
to these, like, I don't, their their belief is so strong that there's nothing that they won't do to, like, someone they don't believe is right. Somewhere in it, it talks about, like, a holy war versus a jihad, because of course the other side's religions, like, kind of saying the exact same thing they're saying. We're the chosen ones. We're gonna win. We're destined for greatness. So they both just clash with each other over their belief, right or wrong.
Yeah, I think you could say that, maybe because the Nansor and the Kianin, they've they've engaged with each other for so long, like to the point where they don't just fight battles, but they also like trade. They will also trade captives. They've negotiated with each other that they might see each other as human, basically. Not just some token like faith symbol of faith. Um, whereas the other Inrithi, they never met the Kiani before. Like for them, there are these just abstract heathens. So they won't I mean, it makes sense. They're not as compelled to feel compassion for them as the Nentur would be.
One thing that I really liked is that we have more. I'm I'm gonna butcher these names. Math, Mathanet, Mathanet.
Nathan,
Okay,
it's good, I
Mathanet.
think.
I liked for such a an important character. It doesn't seem like we've had a whole lot of him yet. So it's nice to peek in and see how he's doing and kind of see where he is.
His little battle of words with Xerius. What did you think of that, Katerina? Since
Well, obviously, I'm rooting for the Romans. Well, which in this case, well, Romans as in not the Pope, the Byzantines.
the Emperor, you're ruling.
Yes.
We know what you meant.
Uh, yeah. No, I'm a big fan of the Icarus, and as much of a despicable character that Xerius is, I don't know. Like you can't. Like he is in a really unenviable position in the sense that he's basically fighting to save an empire that's been in decline for hundreds of years, and his gamble is one way to save not just the empire as an abstract concept, but just to save his people as well. So I find it interesting that obviously he's not a benevolent ruler. There are a lot of reasons why his people might hate him, but at the same time, he's doing stuff. He's trying in his own wicked, paranoid way. He's trying to give them something better. I think that's my take.
I liked how we got a lot of his like inner thinking during that little procession to the holy site to meet Mithnet, where it's like the light has to shine on the emperor always. There's weird rules. The emperor can never smell his people, it said. So there's just incense everywhere he's going, and at first he's thinking everyone loves him, and he starts waving, and then realizes they hate him. And then he thinks exactly what you say, that he's like gonna be thought of as a great king because he's gonna reunite the empire and everyone should respect him. And then he gets like angry. He turns sour and firm in his emperorness and just starts hacking people away. Then when he goes in and they're like chanting Maithanet, and then they finally like start, I think the guards he had sent to spill blood in the streets start chanting his name. That's what he told Maithanet. You hear that? Now they're calling my name, and it's just a bunch of people screaming and dying.
Yeah, must have put them all to the sword.
Yeah, I think Xerius has a big imposter syndrome that might be actually justified. Because he constantly has to convince himself that he is the emperor, that he's more than other people, that he's smarter, he's more competent, he's more cunning, and the world keeps breaking those like keeps breaking those ideas. The world keeps telling him how bad he is at his job. So I do feel for him, a little bit.
And at some point during that, he's like, "What would Conthus think?" And he's like, "Why would I even think? What would Conthus think? I'm the emperor."
Yeah, it's like he constantly has to convince himself that he is the god of men. Which is, I mean, it's hard. Like to me, I would find that to me would be very anxiety inducing to somehow maintain the perception that like I'm above all people, I'm always right. Like if you're not one of those people who are already convinced of their superiority, like Confucius, I think it's a pretty tough position to be in. If naturally you're inclined to feel inferior to other people.
But do you almost have to have that mindset though? Otherwise, you'll appear weak and vulnerable.
I would say it helps. I mean, you can certainly see that. Well, I don't know. Some people in this world who are very confident are very successful. Conf being the most obvious example.
Yeah.
There's a part where he like tripped on his gown when he got out, and everyone started laughing at him. So he just like freaks out and runs up the stairs and like falls on the floor. And then the first thing Mayfinette does is directly calls him out for his betrayal. And then it's like, oh, I'm just joking.
There's
He's
lots of
walking
humor.
some tricky lines. And then we never got what the speech was, but
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that Maythanet has come all the way to Momem to see Sirius in person. And I wonder why that is. Why did they have to meet face to face? I don't think we got the answer for that. But it's an interesting thing to think about.
unless what Mayfinette said when he first asked him was, what do you think's exactly? Right? That he already basically knows that Ikari Honfis had betrayed them to the Phantom, like, but maybe he doesn't. Who knows? Who knows what he knows? He does see the
Yeah,
few, though. We know that. That's one thing. And he's pretty young and pretty smart.
yeah, but I mean, what can Maythanet do in Momem apart from having a chat with Sirius? It's not like he, I don't know, has an army that he could use to put the Emperor in his place. I don't think he does. It wasn't mentioned.
Nope, but it let Ikari know that the slaves are his people, and they probably outnumber the army and all the royals. He learned that out in the streets, and then he hacked them all down. I'm sure they're not happy about that either, all those poor dead people's families.
Yeah.
Probably not. But so far, the Nensor army seems to be more effective than a slave mob.
And the Shriel Knights are gone. He's sent them off, and then they all mostly died already. So,
That is true. That's unfortunately the case. That's what happened.
Yeah. The plundering or the pillaging and plundering was. I'm seeing more and more of the comparisons to Empires of Dust. It reminds me of some of the scenes in that series.
yeah, it was quite casually done. A lot of the brutality, I think they're probably halfway to Shimei by now, or close. I need to look at the map probably, but they've made a good distance by the end of this part.
I haven't looked at the map in a while. Probably should do that.
There was one of these pages tabbed was they began barricading themselves in their great doomed. With their wives and children, they gathered, wailing with soft carpets, crying out their sins, begging for forgiveness. The thunder of rams at the doors would be their only answer, in the rush of iron-eyed swordsmen.
That's pretty bleak.
Yeah. But it's funny the way it's just kind of there's other things happening, but during the day they're just kind of, this path of destruction.
Doing what war parties do, which is never good. And I think the Ikari achieved a victory over the Holy War, and Saban got super mad about it, right? Hinnereth, he did not like what happened there at all. And said he's never going to let it happen again. We'll give him this little barren shithole area.
Yeah, because Saban put it in his head that what's the name of the city again? Hinnereth. That Hinnereth, for some reason, should belong to him, even though he does not have any reasonable claim to it. So, and he also has a pretty long history with Comfis besting him in some battle they fought at Momim, I think. So, makes sense he would get upset about Comfis conquering Hinnerith before them.
Yep, it's true. I think he had fought him once, and they fought like a stalemate or something. But at that time, Confus was like just a little young, like barely a man. So he was just mad about it. Should have won him.
Well, that's what Saban thinks.
Totally, total opposite end of the spectrum. But I know we talked a little bit last week about Akka and Espenet, and there was a line that I highlighted. See if I can find it on 215, or on my edition anyway. It was strange to be known, truly known, to be awaited rather than anticipated, to be accepted instead of believed, to be half another's elaborate habits, to see oneself continually foreshadowed in another's eyes. It's so we have this really bleak, dark thing, and then they kind of have their moments in these few chapters. Well, until later, but it's like this weird, twisted love story that's in this.
And then it says what two bodies, one light, or one warmth.
One soul, wasn't it? Oh yeah, one warmth. Yeah.
And then at the end, it's one body, one body, no warmth. For Espenet.
Yeah, that was really unfortunate.
And we got one more talk about Yalgrath's rank hammer. Did you guys catch that?
I don't think so.
Where was it?
It was in a place called Nagragus, and General Nemerius was already there for the Emperor, and they opened the gate somehow, and the Thunieri stormed inside, and they started having pitched battles with the Nancer, and they met to discuss a treaty. The general for the Nancer and Yalgrath's Rakehammer, and I forgot how it described it. It was basically he died.
I think he got brained.
He brained him, that's right.
Brained him.
Rakehammer brained him. And then the Nancer fled, and Thunieri just, I guess, probably killed everyone in the town.
Yeah, I bet Confus was pretty pissed about that.
Yeah, it's crazy. What do they call it? The fog of war nowadays. You don't really know what's happening in the battle or right around the battle. It's all too confusing. It's not until the people come in and inspect the dead bodies till you finally can figure out what happened.
I also think the Thunieri are probably not known as great negotiators, especially because most of them don't even speak Shake.
Yeah, I don't think they care about negotiating. Yeah. They seem even more feared than then what's his name? Then snares people. Then the
The
Sylvanti.
Sylvanti.
They seem almost more warrior and scary than them. But we haven't got to see any yet talk, so. And Confis and who was it? They were trying to decide whether Kellis was a false prophet or not. Oh, it was Zin and Proyas.
Wants him arrested.
Proyas, yeah, thinks that he's taken the war from Mathanet and asks Zin to go and like study, try to figure it out. And then Kellis just like ignored him during the beginning of the impromptu sessions. I think that's what they called them. And then he eventually won him over.
Are we talking about Martemis or about Zynemus now?
I think it was
Zynemus is Proyas' general.
Yeah, it was Zinimus and Proyas. Proyas doesn't trust Kellis, so he sent him out to go like try to weasel his way in his inner circle and figure out what he was. And then in doing so, Kellis turns in.
To a believer.
And by the end of this, the Ekamian thing made Zinimus renounce all like contact with Proyas. Forgot what he called him. It was pretty insulting to the prince. He was mad.
Yeah, he got pretty mad. But I do think it was I do think it was Confis who sent his general Martemis to spy on Kellis. Though I think Proyas, at least at the first few chapters, he's still undecided about Kellis. But Confis straight up hates Kellis. And thinks that that Kellis is a Kisharim or Sisharim spy, was somehow connected to chaos. So I think that's why Confis sends Martemis to try to infiltrate the cult that Kellis has built around himself.
Yeah, that's true. And Zinimus is the host of the camp that they're all staying at, so he's already like basically a firm believer at this point. Only Proyas isn't.
True. I think maybe Proyas has learned doubt from Akamian. You know, in this case at least. Akamian just seems to have fallen for Kellis pretty quickly.
I think it's kind of like Proyas is like belief in the literal as opposed to the nuanced, like it said Zinimus had, right? Zinimus could like talk to a sorcerer and still like be a good person and think he's going to be saved, whereas Proyas takes the tusk literally, and so he thinks that sorcerers are blasphemers, and he doesn't want to talk to Akamian and wants to like keep all of the blasphemy away from him because he takes it all super literal.
Yeah, I mean, Zynemus is definitely more open-minded than Proyas. That's for sure.
I'm not sure if either of you know the answer to this question, but from when Kellis does start getting a following, and he talks about celebrating suffering, is that based in any other religion? That I don't know if that sounded almost like a Buddhist. Where his roots are, or I'm not sure if either of you are familiar with what kind of influenced that.
I'm not sure exactly what text it is, but it's definitely based on some beliefs. the Buddhists almost believe in like opposites, so it would be kind of one of their beliefs. It was explained really well. I liked how he did like these parts of enlightenment. I heard when he wrote them that he like wrote hundreds. He wrote them like hundreds of times, and then eventually one would stick as good enough to be from Tillis's mouth.
Yeah, I think Callus is sort of like one of these self-help gurus. Who's pretending or thinks that he's helping you reveal some fundamental truths about yourself, and by understanding those truths, you might be able to change the way you behave or change the way you think about yourself and about the world. I know it did remind me a little bit of the suffering, like accepting the suffering. It reminded me a little bit of Nietzsche. I think he does talk about sort of accepting the pain of your existence. But I'm not, I'm not well read in philosophy whatsoever, so I don't want to make any wild conjectures.
Baker does like Nietzsche a lot. And I guess Kellis was going from a self-help guru and seeing that like mega churches are where the money's at. So now he's gonna become a pastor at a mega church, huh?
Yeah, I think my problem with reading those sermons is that because I know he doesn't mean it, I tend not to really pay attention to what he's saying. Like it goes one ear in, one ear out. Because at the end of the day, like there may be some truth in it, but it's nonsense, or it's just words he uses to manipulate people.
He like lets you see the truth in it when he tells a story about a fur trapper that he met named Lewis, and how he replaced his wife with his dogs. When one love dies, you must learn to love another, and he never finishes the story.
Yeah,
But it
that's
was
not how I
that part
remember
was
this.
touching.
Yeah, that's not how I remember this story from the prologue.
Yeah, this is true, but it just shows that truth is what you make it. He didn't lie. It was technically part of the truth. There's just a lot of truth removed. Lewis did run away to those woods because his wife died, and he did have all those dogs, and they were like his favorite things in the world. So that's true. He just didn't be like, oh, and then I came and ruined everything for him, and now he's dead.
Yeah, I guess I was questioning whether Lewis ran away to honor the memory of his wife, which I don't think that's how it was interpreted in the prologue. But I guess this is a different interpretation of the same man. And it's both from we only have this information from Kellis, so who knows?
It seemed like he learned a lot from Lewis in the short period of time that he was with him. But there's a couple of on 243, kind of these sermons really reminded me of like the mega church or like the snake handlers and stuff like that. You are frail, you are alone. Those who would love you know you not. You lust for obscene things. You fear even your closest brother. You understand far, far less than you pretend. You are these things, frail, alone, unknown, lusting, fearing, and uncomprehending. Even now you can feel the truths burn. They consume you. If they weren't on the march, I think they'd have a church built by now or some kind of, structure. It's for him to, have his pulpit.
And when he was up in the north, he had already converted like a small army up there to all die in the mountains for him to even have made it here. So
I think you towards the end of this, at the end of chapter 13, you really see he just has there's no no one really matters to him. Well, at least Surway doesn't. Just a tool for him to use. Like we've been talking for the last probably since the beginning of the first book, but he just they're just tools at his disposal and they don't really matter to him. If I can't help but feel bad for Surway. I don't know.
I would question your entire personality if you did not feel bad for Survey.
Okay. Okay, good. She's just kind of going along and trying to, she's like his. It seems like they get closer, and she's almost like his companion. Um, and then maybe not.
Well, I mean, he does send her to have sex with a commune just
Yeah.
because it's
Yeah.
another way of him to get make Akka closer to him, or give him a reason to basically reveal the gnosis to him eventually.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if that was him because I thought it really happened, but I was on the fence of whether because um, she tells him, "It is you. I can see you. I can see." And then he sees Espinette, but I wasn't sure how much of that actually happened, or if that was some kind of vision or something he was having.
It's supposed to remain kind of vague, but as you read along, at first it gets confirmed by one, and then another, and then another, and then another, till it's confirmed by all four to have happened in like a kind of druggedly way, it seems like. I want to ask a question, and it was in the chapters, but it just seems like I shouldn't ask the question.
For spoilers' sake, or what?
Yeah, there's just a part where Kellis goes into a probability trance, and the things he says is strange seeming. They don't seem to fit with what's happening.
It does seem like he's seeing at least one possible version of the future. I mean, it's the probabilities trance, so I guess the idea is that you have different things that can happen in the future and you assign the probabilities to them, right?
Seemed like right after he did that, and it says like he breathed out, and then like what did he call it, revelation, and then after that seemed to start acting faster, like meddling in things, like he's found the path, maybe at least to a certain point of the precipice. We'll talk about it more when it happens. I'm going to remember to bring this up, but I'm not going to say anything.
All right.
It was highlighted in my notes, but ultimately at this point, you can't tell if all these things will happen or if none of them will happen. Some people might say that it's a prophecy. You know, he says he's had a revelation, and they call him the prophet.
And then afterwards, he once again confirms that what comes before determines what comes after, even after this most recent prophecy he had. So it's not prophecy to him, at least not yet.
I love how careful you both are with certain things. Those of you who are listening, they both have this weird grin on their faces, and
these books get significantly more complex. This is just one small layer of the books. This fun holy war we're in the middle of.
Yeah, I do get the feeling that this holy war is like a distraction, or it's like it's really what it's not really that big of a story for some reason. Like it's a big event and it's important, but it's not the main um, conflict. Maybe.
The same thing it is in the books. It's like a secondary vehicle for his characters to do what they're doing.
Mm.
Yeah, but anyway, I think even if you read the prophecy or the revelation that he has at the end of chapter 9, even if all those things happen even if all those things happen eventually, I don't think you have, like, it doesn't really tell you anything. I don't think you have a way of deciphering it at this point. So,
That's why I'm not say I'll say nothing.
but it's
There's
a
a
cool thing to go back to once you've finished the thousandfold thought, probably.
Oh wow. Okay. Well,
true.
yeah, we'll have to put a bookmark in this one for sure. I'll have to get the page number from you.
All
For
right,
the
and there's a part where he's talking to a Akamian and he's already trying to like make himself seem like a prophet to a Akamian, right? And he says, "I don't recognize my own voice." At one point, he told him like, "When I talk, it doesn't even sound like me." Now he's saying that most of the time, I don't even recognize my own voice. Someone else is talking. And Akamian seems to have taken the bait right before he gets word of some cool new books. And just like us, he drops everything and just like heads straight for the books.
Yeah, I thought that was. I kind of took that as almost like a. There was some quotes about how great books are, and I kind of felt like that was a wink and a nod kind of thing for the reader.
And how, what was the quote? Something about how books, like what are books besides like a long moment for us to allow someone else to move our soul, which is what happens when you read books. It was good. Didn't go good, but it was good. It was good writing.
Yeah, and Esminet gets left behind again after they start to kind of get this connection, and they have this bond, and they're getting really close, and then he just I'm gonna jump on. I'll be back. Like I need some time alone, and it doesn't work out too well for him.
Yeah, I wonder to what I mean, obviously it's the Kamian's decision, but I wonder to what extent Callus has influenced that decision, because he does spend a lot of time in these like first 300 pages working a Kamian and getting him to depend on Callus almost. Um and there's and I wonder if when we can go back to talking about Survey and Akami and having that moment. Like I wondered, or at least the way I understood it was that that was a way for Callus to put a wedge between Esmond and Akami, and to make him less less dependent on her, and force him to turn to Callus um, for answers or forgiveness or understanding or whatever it is that Kamian needs.
I think it had that purpose. It had like a duality of purposes. Like it also served to kind of make Akamian owe something to Kellis because he's like keeping a secret now from who he thinks is like a prophet.
Hmm.
So he's dealing with it a certain way. Esminet deals with it a certain way, and she's just kind of like mad about it, but quiet mad about it, which is dangerous for women to be quiet mad. And Sarahway thinks like they all feel a different way about it. Kellis, of course, just is using it as a tool. I forgot how it described that he used Serway, but it was rude. It was impolitely. And in the end, he offers to give Serway to Nair, back to Nair after he's taken her for the intellect of war, and he agreed, I guess.
Looks like it. And I was surprised to hear he is like lusting after Sarah, that he almost dare say cares about her. Well, maybe cares about what he can get from her, or how he, having her around to do what he wants to. But it was um, maybe the first time that I remember seeing that side of his character. Unless maybe, well, I guess his wife, he did talk about her favorably too, but about Cerbère. I think it's because of the way he treated her. So
I think the relationship between Serway and Nayor is one of the most complicated in these books. It takes a lot to wrap your mind around it. But we do see Nayor conflicted in these chapters, not only about Serway but also about some of the Enrithi, like Proyas. It seems that he's formed some sort of affection for the people he's been spending his time with. And it's almost like, and he chastises himself for feeling concern for them, or for enjoying the fact that they respect him and his martial acumen, which is not something a Skilvendi should feel, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's true. He's going through some things, and I think he moved out of camp. Sometimes he finds a village to go in and just murder a family, live in their house, or something like that. Who knows what? One time he just did worse things. Said he like stabbed a hole into the ground with a knife, and
yeah, did things to it.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's going through a crisis since he lost his prize Sarway, and he feels bad about the things he did to her, but he doesn't want to look like a weak little Nancer, like a weak little human. And he has that same conflict when he's dealing with them too. He has to like be the Sylvendi. He has to be the breaker of horse and man, like he is. I guess we'll see how this war changes him. He's already not like the rest of the Sylvendi from the beginning after Moingus broke him.
Yeah.
He's got like a Dunyan filter in him where he's like, what would a Dunyan do? Why would a Dunyan do this? So he thinks deeply. Then they were talking about how as kids they would learn songs to describe like the columns of the Kyanine warriors. So all the kids knew like all of the banners of all of the Kyanine, and that's why he like knew every banner that was there. Because instead of like nursery rhymes, they're doing war rhymes.
And I mean, also they don't have a writing system. Like they only transmit information through a oral tradition. So that's like another small, like another like a little detail about the cultures that I think make this world feel more realistic or more authentic. But yeah, Nayor has a lot of repressed emotions, and he needs to find some outlet and let the steam off.
Yeah, that's one way to say it.
And a lot of people suffer for it, which is
Estimat
unfortunate.
rats him out, rats Kellis out for mocking him. when Kellis is doing multiple voices and just making fun of him. That was pretty good.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, he was impersonating everybody and speaking like that.
Yeah, there was this like very short moment where it almost seemed like he was going to laugh along with them, and then he didn't,
It said he
and just
like
got.
looked in horror at them, and then he got in a big fight with Akamian about it because Akamian, what did he say? Like brothers mock each other, and that's like their love.
Yeah.
And he was like, what did he say? Is it love or is it ignorance or something? Just I have to find it.
Yeah, I read that as another way of Kellis trying to make a Kamian feel guilty. But I don't know if that's why Kellis was so upset about what a Kamian said.
And it also made Nair super mad. It had like a duality of effect. Everything Kellis is doing now seems to be with more purpose, if that makes sense, or with more direction. All the people that get affected by it react a certain way that is beneficial to him.
So, if everything Callus is doing and the pieces he's moving into place, was this thought out? And I'm not expecting either of you to answer this question, but how far back was this planned? Because was Moingus and what he did part of this whole thing? Is it all destined to happen this way, or is it? Um, yeah, I don't know.
Akamian thinks for thousands of years is kind of all preordained. Everyone thinks it's various degrees of preordained.
Yeah, I wondered why Moingus did what he did and kind of took him under his wing. If this was all um, planned.
Moingus took Nair under his wing? Or, I don't know. Kellis said it was his father's mistake, right? At one point.
That's true.
He says, "What is this, father? A mistake?" And then
do they make mistakes though?
He made a mistake of his own. I don't remember exactly what it was. Oh, looking too long at Skios. That was an error on his part. I think he's made two mistakes actually in one guess at this point. He guessed for Saban.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I would say the Dunyan they definitely plan long ahead, but there are still a lot of things they're not able to anticipate.
Yeah, they have. What's the old Donald Rumsfeld quote? You have the known unknowns, the things that you know that you don't know. And then you have your unknown unknowns, the things that you don't know that you don't know. You can never know the things that you don't know until they mess up your plans. And maybe Akamian getting lost was one of those for Kellis. Definitely doesn't serve his purpose at this point because he had just decided he was going to give him the Gnosis, right? And now he's gone. He'd made up his mind that he was going to risk it all.
Yeah, that didn't work out too well. Well,
yeah. Well,
it's funny.
Something we didn't know. Sorry, something we didn't know until now is that Kellis is one of the few.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if you were surprised by that, Steve, or not.
I was, yeah. Or I shouldn't be, but
we got to see that doll in action.
Oh yeah, that's right. He brings the doll to life.
Yeah, as I don't I don't think I noticed any foreshadowing of that. I don't think Callus ever talked about seeing the mark on
And
people or in things before, as far as I can remember. So I mean, reading it for the first time, I think it should come as a big surprise.
I
Yeah, I
feel
didn't
like
see that coming.
if you go to the prologue, when he like looks upon the no god, he sees something in him, and he talks about like him not being like a normal, him being like weird, as if he can kind of, he doesn't know it's magic though. So the way he's describing it is vaguish, but
Hmm.
he appeared to see that the non-man was like something more too.
Hmm.
Yeah, I might go back and reread that section because I guess I just assumed that the description was strange because this was the first time he was seeing a non-man.
Yeah,
Um,
and
but
magic and strength. It was all strange to him, so his descriptions might seem strange.
yeah, and he did get weirded out by a twig earlier, so
Yeah.
For a week or a month.
no.
Yeah, I like that the doll. What I forgot how it was worded, that it's moving from the inside and not the outside. Like something inside is moving it.
Well, it was like a slack bag, and then all of a sudden the face, like the nose, appeared in the bag, and the eyes.
Yeah.
That was it was pretty trippy. Cinemas hated it. Cinemas did not like that one bit.
He did get pretty mad.
Hmm.
And then it talked about like Acamian struggle, like sorcery is blasphemy, and he talks about the guy who, like, everyone hates, who betrayed Inri Sejanus, the guy that tried to give him a wood bone staff or something.
I think he
Like,
tried to give him a kingdom.
yeah, he gave him all his stuff and a bone staff. The bone staff was like magical and would have like ruined his holiness, but he gave him everything else just so he would take it. I think is like what the story kind of
Hmm.
was. And
Uh, Temptation.
yeah,
And yeah, as Menet seems to suggest that a Kamian might be the temptation for Callus, and that the right choice for Callus would be to refuse a Kamian and refuse to learn the Gnosis.
and then and then Acamian like struggles with the fact that he's damned, but like sorcery is like singing God's language, and prophets speak God's language. So if a prophet sings God's language, is he really damned? If he's already like speaking God's language? Technically not, right? Maybe. So that's like
No,
the
well,
struggle Acamian is having right now. And then it also like talks about how when the second apocalypse comes, they're supposed to share the gnosis so they can be ready to fight the no god. So he's thinking he's the first one that's going to share the gnosis, but now it's in a good way instead of like the bad way. He's converted his beliefs into like thinking it's all a good thing. And then he disappears. But he killed 2 scarlet spires, those,
That was cool.
and thousands and thousands of books.
yeah. Am I the only one who felt really, really sad about the library burning down?
No, you're the only one.
Acamian felt horrible too. You could tell. He's like, are they really going to do this? I mean, I'm going to do it if they're going to do it, but this is madness. He loved books.
That's the first time I think that he seemed really powerful. Like, I don't want to say capable, but he seemed like he was powerful in that during that whole. Even though he was taken, it was pretty neat to see that side of Akamian.
It
Yeah, I mean, it
talks
was
about
7-1, including the Grandmaster of the Scarlet Spires.
and it talks about like sorcery is singing in God's voice, and then the way it described the five mages as like performing a concert, meaning they're all just doing like different cants, and he's only got his one voice, so they just weathered him down.
Yeah, it's true. I didn't realize a group of sorcerers is a concert.
But yeah, concert of singing mages in God's voice, and
Huh.
it kind of like revealed how sorcery works in this. It's supposed to be like the voice God used to create the world by like singing it into existence. But since man only knows a fraction, it's like baby talking. So it's like making a mockery of God's voice. So it never like creates, it only destructs. They got no creative magic, only bad, destructive stuff because they can't comprehend the full language or the meaning, I don't think. Or who knows? Who knows what magic is? That's just what they think it is.
It was pretty cool, the fight scene between the sorcerers.
I found myself wondering what was going to happen to Daybreak a lot. Where's his poor donkey going to go? He's just sitting outside of the school right now. Maybe Kellis had got him. I don't remember it saying.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure why Callus would need a mule. Well, maybe for Serway. He did say he was going to get her one.
That was the whole plan, just to get the mule.
It might be a bargaining chip later. If he can use it for later, he'll get it.
Yeah, well, and Esmond is also still there, waiting for a commune. What's the name of the city? Iothea? I forgot.
Yeah, just in the sticks. Everyone's left her alone, and she's just still sitting there. Poor her. Wonder what's gonna happen. Zenimus
Yeah.
is out looking for her right now, or looking for a Camion with. I feel like he has some people with him currently.
Yeah, the two of his comrades, whose names I absolutely blocked out.
Yeah, some secondary characters at the moment.
I also realized that we're about halfway through the book. It's quick. It seemed fast.
Yeah, it has went pretty quick.
Yeah. Well, I'm also sad that we seem to have lost Martimus, the Nansur general, to Callus's little cult. I don't know. He just seemed like such a nice, down to earth guy. Not all like all these nobles who always bickering and fighting each other and conspiring. You know, he says he's like a practical dude who just he comes, he assesses, and then he does, and he's done with it. And now he's turned into a blabbering religious fool. So I'm sad, and I'm also sad for Confus because
Yeah,
he seemed to be able to negate some of Confus's self. I don't know how to describe it.
aggrandizement.
Yeah, that's a good word.
Yeah, but you can't, like, if you put yourself in their shoes, it makes sense. They think Kellis is saying like super badass things, and it makes sense to them, kind of. Like Akamian describes, he takes like the geometries, goes further with them, he proves Agensis's logic wrong. He's taking these people to a place they've never been before, and it's like intoxicating to them. If you're there on the ground in a like horrible war where everyone around you is getting hung to trees and like disemboweled, the Phantom creatures says had it the worst. It didn't sound good for them.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it just comes as a surprise, and I think maybe we talked about it last week a little bit, that Martimus seems like someone who's so like nonsense and so loyal to the empire and to the army that it's just like Kellis must be really good to convert someone like him, is what I'm trying to say.
But then Kellis knows that he's like walking this fine line because he reiterates it over and over that he can't like let them see too fast, otherwise it'll be bad for him. Has to be like a slow coming around.
Well, I guess I'm just sad to see Comfits losing ground under his feet. You know, it's, everyone hates him. All the great names hate him. Um, Martimus, he's lost Martimus. He lost the other general in the fight with the Thanieri. You know, I'm concerned.
Seems like everywhere that Icaries go, that's what they face. Even like in their own home. Xerius feels all alone. He hates his, what did he call her? Like bitch mother or something terrible. Something that would have got soap in my mouth when I was a kid.
Yeah, his relationship with his mother is not something you want to emulate.
No, definitely not.
Definitely not.
Yeah. Yeah. What else did you have in your notes, Katerina?
Mm, well, there's this one part where Cersei, not Cersei, that's someone else. Serway talks about submission and how she's basically found happiness of sorts in completely surrendering to the circumstances. And I guess that's why she allows Callus to do whatever he wants her to do, including seducing a commune, which just in itself it's pretty horrible. Like just especially when you contrast the way that like the way she thinks of Callus as like this her god, her savior, someone who loves her and cares for her, and then you look at it from an outsider's perspective and you realize he's pimping her around and trading her for favors or for knowledge. It's I don't know, like when you read it, when I read it, it doesn't come across as badly, but when I start thinking about it, it makes me so upset the way he treats her more than anyone else.
I
'Cause I
think
think
in
she might
real
be
life
the yeah.
that like happens, right? The victim, like when they're in it, they don't like see it clearly. They don't see that they could just get out, so they just stay in a horrible circumstance until someone intervenes somehow. And she's stuck in that. She's been stuck in that like her whole life, it seems like, though. Well, ever since she got sold by her dad.
Can't she get out there? I mean, is there another option for her? I mean, are the other options worse than?
In her
I
eyes,
mean,
he's God, so she's like in the best position in the world. She gets to like lay with a god.
it's a good point. I guess her alternative would be going with Nayor, which equally bad. Even if his intentions might be pure, in reality, at least in terms of the consequences, doesn't really matter. Um, so it's just sad to see her at a point where she's given up any effort to fight her situation and come to a point where she just embraces all the bad that happens to her. Like she's lost all hope, basically.
Yeah,
Is what it is. And I guess she finds some peace in it, which maybe that's a good thing. Might make you feel a little bit better about her situation, but it's still like it's pretty tough to read.
yeah. I think she's one of the more sympathetic characters because she is innocent in a way that she doesn't choose. I mean, Espinette, I know she's probably number two on the list, but she made her choices. But it seems like Survey had no choice. She hasn't had a chance to make a choice.
Espinette tried to seduce Kellis at the end of these chapters to get Akamian back. She'll do whatever she has to get Akamian back at this point.
Oh yeah. Well, that's kind of her. That's her weapon, or that's what she knows, right? I mean, that's her way of getting what she wants is using, appealing to men like that. So that's I think she kind of goes back to how she survives.
She chooses it, and Serway does not.
Right.
Yeah,
But
not really.
Serway probably feels more free, I think, just because of what Kellis has turned her brain into at this point. Thinking all these submissions are a good thing for her, and somehow she's found like happiness in it. It's
Yeah, I
terrible.
suppose I suppose there is some freedom in giving up, if you can look at it that way.
She's really a slave to Kellis, but she doesn't understand that the way she understands that she was a slave to Nair. Nair treated her more like the slave, his prize.
True. But like maybe the question, like, does it matter if she actually feels happy? Does it matter that she's a slave?
That's pretty
What if
depressing.
I what if I apply that question to the thousands of people that are now listening to Kellis's sermons?
Hmm.
They're happy, but are they now slaves, kind of?
Huh. So, Survey, Kellis tells Nair that that's his baby, but to wonder whether it is or not. I know you can't say it. My
We
guess is
talk,
that
we,
it is,
we,
but
we talked
I,
about this, and it's definitely not Kellis's because he never did anything, and he told her that like straight to her, but she just like forgot about it. She doesn't want to think that.
yeah, I think it's been established that she was pregnant before her and Kellis did it the
consummated.
first time.
And for some reason, Sarcellus, he hates that. The smell of a newborn baby is like revolting to the skin spies.
Before they did it, yeah.
You know, next time, just send me a list of synonyms I'm allowed to use.
No,
Because
it's funny because
You're
we've been
allowed to
trying.
use every synonym.
we
Consummated.
Was it coupled, coupling? What was the other ones? Yeah, we have all sorts of interesting ones. We have to add do it to the list of yeah. No, it was great.
There was a
look,
quote that I
English
liked
is
a
not
lot.
my first language.
I mean, I think you speak English better than I do, and it's my only language, so you're doing okay.
Yeah, won't make us jealous again.
Yeah, don't
But
rub it
I
in.
found a quote from Antilles on the Folly of Men that says, "Men are forever pointing. That's why I follow the knuckle and not the nail." It's pretty
Oh,
good.
that's a cool one. I love that quote. Or it's a quote, right? From
Yeah,
someone.
it's at the beginning of one of the chapters from Antilles. There was like a little poem on love that was pretty cool too. I forgot what it said exactly. I don't know where my book is either.
Did it finally fall apart?
Now I've taped it up. Good. It's gonna live. Um, oh, and the Holy War marches again. They set up a bunch of flotillas and they are trying to get to Shigeki, is it?
I say Shigek, but who
Shigek.
knows what the pronunciation is.
And in doing so, like they named Nair the war leader or the whatever, and they had a banner made after him, and that's when he goes through all those weird emotions about feeling proud but hating who's proud of him at the same time. And it works. They get to the other side without having fought a battle, and that's where we end on the doors of the next city to try to siege, unless Confis somehow steals it away from them. And it sounds like this battle's going to be a lot bigger too. They say all of the like more famous sapichas or whatever they call them are there now. So the ones that even the Nancer know their name. It said that what's his name knew them all. Mayor knew them all, but some of the ones that I think they said they caught two people and they like interrogated him, and the people proved what Nair said was true, that they didn't have the full army there or even the most powerful of them.
Yeah, and even Confus agrees with Nior, so it must be true.
Yeah, that was a big moment. The dog is right.
I
Yeah.
mean,
See, we said
it's lovely that Confus cares about the army to a point where he's actually willing to agree with a skill Vendi. That's pretty touching, you know. It's you don't get that very often from Confus.
That's true. He seems to be quite defeated now. He's got sent on the Holy War. He's not getting everything they want. They're having to like sneak cities away from the men of the Tusk while they march with them. So pretty soon he's going to be like out of reach of Xerius. So it's just going to be Confus's decisions on his own. Just once they travel far enough, it's hard to send word back and forth. Mathanet won't be able to speak for Savon either, sooner or later.
Yeah, the distances are getting longer. But yeah, I guess next week we'll we'll see who's the better general, if Scaris or Nayor.
I think this part ends about 100 pages from there, right? From where we left off.
Part
Yeah, I
two?
think so.
Let's see.
Should be around 4 chapters, I think.
Let's see. We're on page 294, and the part ends on 390. So 96 pages, 95 pages.
That sounds good to me.
Cool.
Me as well.
Daniel's nodding. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. So we started off saying we did it like a lot happened, and here we are, an hour and 20 minutes later. You know.
I'm sure we missed a couple things too.
I'm
Stuff
sure.
got so briefly and casually mentioned that it's hard to capture everything. Oh, they tried to assassinate Kellis, and he just like casually stopped it in the middle of a conversation, just continued the conversation. And they just beat the guy to death.
Yeah.
Some more stuff like that I'm sure we missed, but
Yeah. And then Confus almost confesses to Proyas that he's behind the assassination.
yep, I think that they all but know it. Basically, it was one of Confus's guys. Even Kellis has to know it at this point.
Yeah, I think so.
It's pretty obvious. If you've been following the politics, it's pretty obvious.
What's going to happen next week, Steve? Any guesses?
I have no idea. I really don't.
We got a Camion that's somewhere.
I don't think we'll see a Camion and Kellis together for a while. We'll say that. Maybe.
Could a Camion have wrote all these passages already?
Oh. I think he survives. Well, I think he survives this trilogy. I'm guessing, but I don't think he'll be with Kellis for a while. I think he'll or Esminet either. They were having too much fun. It can't happen. That's the fun meter was going too far over. That's can't have that. So
That's true.
We'll see.
Yes, we will.
I'm trying to judge the facial expressions, but it's hard. You guys are pretty good about.
So much happens that my facial expressions just can't betray any one thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, cool. Well, so we'll finish off part 2 next week. So awesome. Katerina, do you want to tell us where to get in touch with you if someone wants to reach out and talk about books?
Sure. The easiest way to find me is on the page chewing forum, and I'm also on Instagram at the Errand. You can follow me there or chat with me there. Be happy to hear from you.
Nice. And Daniel, random person on the internet that doesn't want to be found, where can people find you?
Just think if you really need to say anything to me, and you probably don't. So. But if you do, you can just comment on the YouTube video when it comes up.
Nice. Cool. Well, everybody, thanks for listening, and we'll see everyone next week. Until then, have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.